Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, Season 2, Episode 4, and I have to pronounce this one. This is a tough one. It's La Paradis pour Toy? I think? I don't know. They're getting confusing. And before I get into the video, I need to preface that this will contain major stories. And after having watched the whole season at this point, I could tell you for certainty that this is arguably the biggest episode of the entire show, including season 1. So you've been warned, because from here on out, it is open seas. And also, I just want to let you guys know that no matter how much criticism I give this episode, and believe me, I will be, I still enjoy watching this show. And if I turn my brain off, it's fun, sure. That being said, I personally get invested in the stories I watch and find it impossible to turn my brain off. Believe me, I see your criticisms that I'm being too negative. I'm going to try to add things in the episodes that I do like, because you are right. I think to a certain extent, these last couple reviews have been only negatives, and I don't want to do that. There are things I like. There's a reason I'm still watching the show at large, and I need to point that out. I do implore you, if you guys haven't seen my season 1 reviews, check them out. I had nothing negative to say at all about that season. It's just, I don't find this season to be on the same level in any way, shape, or form. I really don't. And this episode, unfortunately, along with the last episode for me personally, and a week later, I'm still not changing my stances. I'm doubling down on them. But even this episode, I have the same amount, and if not more problems with, than last week. So if you're going to have a problem with that in the comments, find another YouTuber, because I have problems with this episode. I will point out some things I liked in the beginning. So with all of that out of the way, Merry Christmas. There's a lot to unpack here. And it starts out literally instantly, because we pick up immediately where episode 3 left off, wherein Madame Genet decided to betray Carol and put her in the line of fire with like 50 other guys, and magically, literally like it's Disney World, because of plot armor, Carol is literally the only one to survive a machine gun with probably, it looked like one of those big 50 caliber machine guns. There's 50 men. Every single one of them dies, but somehow, magically, she survives, and then somehow, magically, without no one seeing it, while all of Genet's army men are shooting them with the test subject thing, whatever it is that turns the walkers into the walkers, I don't know what they're called, she just takes it out, and no one sees that she's totally fine. And then somehow from in there, she manages to sabotage the car, which I thought was funny, but Kodron was like strapped to the back of it. I don't know, it looked like an RC. It was just funny. I mean, that's a small detail. But regardless, she manages to sabotage and do all of this and not get killed, even after surviving a 50 caliber huge machine gun where everyone died. Somehow, even though she got stuck by the needle, she pulled it out without anyone noticing her, then ran away in front of everyone with everyone noticing her. Many bullets flying in front of her, and still didn't die. And then she gets away. What? Like, okay, I know I don't want to get too crazy because everything that happened because of that, but really? What? Okay. Besides the point of that, I did enjoy what happened right away thereafter, and how Carol brings them in and the army of the dead essentially infiltrate the nest. I thought that was really cool, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I watched this episode about a week ago. Probably should have brushed up on this fact, but I don't remember exactly what caused the conversation that happened with Losang and Isabelle later, but ultimately, in between all the turmoil, Losang and Isabelle have this conversation wherein Isabelle's, of course, trying to defend Laurent, and I don't even know how to begin to say this. Losang stabs her and inevitably kills Isabelle. And okay, so in the last episode, I had said that if I hope Isabelle doesn't die. Okay, she died. And like, oh man, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Man, this show was the foundation of this show with Isabelle, Laurent, and Daryl was what drew me into the show. It's why I gave the show so much praise. And yeah, I understand. They are probably telling a much bigger story, and in some way, shape, or form, I also kind of understand that maybe these characters were introduced and had such prevalent roles because of the lack of Melissa McBride in season 1, and you had to fill it somehow, some way. Look, I totally get those things, but I fell in fucking love with Isabelle. I fell in love with Laurent. I fell in love with Daryl and that group. I thought they were such a phenomenal dynamic, and I completely understand that this is the world of The Walking Dead. I totally do. So it goes without saying, no one's safe. But that just sucks. I'm not going to say that I think it was like the worst decision ever made. I don't. It's just like, it's so disappointing because Isabelle was such an important character to what made season 1 work. I mean, you look at characters like Quinn, you look at the story that happened at large, it wouldn't exist without Isabelle. She was the glue that held the storyline together. And obviously, like I said, I've seen the full season up to this point, so I know some things that happen later. I don't want to try to incorporate those feelings into it. Quite frankly, I think I'd be more pissed about it having not seen the rest of the shows. So if you're pissed about it, I totally get it. And I'm pissed about it too. I'm really, really pissed about it. But these freaking Paramount Plus leaks happened, and I saw the episodes. Not saying it changes much, and that's not even a spoiler, guys. Not saying what happens later changes much, but contextually where the story inevitably seems to be going, I kind of understand why they did it. I just don't at the same time. Like, I don't. It's just, I loved Isabelle. I really did. I don't necessarily have a problem with characters dying in The Walking Dead, especially big characters. I don't. If I had a problem with that, quite frankly, then I could see your arguments for me being negative about everything. I didn't hate it. I'm disappointed because I loved the character, but I get she has to be sacrificed, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that still doesn't negate the fact that the reason she died is so stupid. I understand that there's this element to the story that people like wherein Lo Sang looks even more deranged because he's going along with this plot to essentially sacrifice Laurent, but I find it just stupid. Like, I really do. I just outright find it absolutely stupid. But what came around it was cool. I'll give credit where it's due. It was very cool seeing all of the crazy walkers infiltrate, the nest, and what came of that and the threat that rose. And then Carol, of course, trying to find Daryl because she knows that he's in the nest, and even Kodran staying back to defend off the crazy walkers so that she could find Daryl. I really did like all that. That sequence I found to be pretty cool. It was one of the reasons that I was so compelled into season 1 of the show, is that there's those variant walkers that have the superpowers and they can create the army of the dead. Look, I know I've said on record many times that I think the show is the best when it's grounded in realism, but I also think it's cool when they do something like these super walkers and kind of change up the stakes a little bit. I mean, it's not that believable. It is a zombie show. I get it. I think the difference is there, for lack of a better word, is early seasons of The Walking Dead felt like you and I were in the apocalypse. Now it feels like an apocalypse that's been advanced in sci-fi and all of that stuff. So while the premise has always been not realistic, at one time it felt like it could be us in there. Now it doesn't as much. And now, even though I don't like it as much because of that, I am okay with the idea of these super walkers. And I thought it made for a really cool sequence, like we got in this episode. But then after she gets stabbed, she ends up leaving to, I guess, try to find Daryl. And in there, yeah, there's some of these crazy walkers running around, and obviously she has to try to defend herself. But that didn't make sense how there wasn't that many after all of that army that came through. Whatever, doesn't really matter. I did really like that we got a little bit of an overlap between Carol and Isabelle. So when Carol is looking for Daryl, so is Isabelle. They cross paths, and clearly Isabelle is dying, and Carol sees that, so she uses, I think it's her coat or something like that, to try to, stop the bleeding and comfort her a little bit. I thought that was really cool, and even though it didn't last long, I'm glad they got to meet under the circumstances. I thought that was very cool. It was great to see in the episode. But then we cut to continuing to Carol try to find Daryl, and it happened. So this episode, by the way, before we even get there, this episode's had a ton of things already. One, we start off the episode with a really crazy cool infiltration of the nest with all the super walkers, even though Magically, somehow, Carol survives that entire thing that's so dumb. But the infiltration was cool. Then we have Isabelle gets stabbed. Then we have Carol reunite with Daryl. It was great. It was so great to see. In an otherwise episode that I really did not like at all, it was truly great to see that Carol finally reunited with Daryl, albeit it was a little quick. I get it. Obviously, the stakes were high, so it had to be quick. It makes perfect sense to me, but it was really just like a quick hug. I'd be lying if I said it didn't get to me a little bit, even though these characters don't have like as triumphant of a reunion as like Rick and Michonne do. It was great to see. And in a way, I'm glad that they didn't make it this gigantic central point. If you watch my last video with Frankie Corcoran, I talked about the fact that we obviously know that Daryl and Carol were going to reunite. I mean, it's literally what the show is about. So it's not like this super crazy triumphant moment to see them return, even though the outlandish factors that brought her there are just beyond me. So I'm glad they didn't spend like a crazy amount of time on that and they immediately jumped right back into the action. I thought that was pretty cool. Did it feel believable? Give or take, but I did think it was pretty cool. I didn't hate it or anything like that. And then they get out, and then they finally reunite with Isabelle. Again, now it's all three of them. It's Isabelle, Daryl, and Carol. And in there, of course, they exchanged their goodbyes, and it really just sucked. I mean, there's no way around it. It sucked. I really am not happy that she died. Like, I'm just not happy. I'm not pissed about it. But it's just disappointing. You know what okay, you know when your parents say they're not mad at you, but they're just disappointed with you? That's exactly how I feel about this. I'm not mad. I'm not like fuming or anything, as you could tell. But I'm just disappointed by it, man, because I really liked the character. I think we could have seen it from a mile away that she wasn't going to survive at some point in the show. Like, no love interest of Daryl's ever survives, just like how none of Carol's kids have survived. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like their trope. But still, it's just disappointing, man, because unlike a lot of the characters that have came before it for Daryl, she felt like someone who should be in The Walking Dead. Like, she felt like a truly great, phenomenal character. So seeing her go was just disappointing. I think I've spent too much time talking about it, so we're going to move on. Of course, Carol and Daryl then leave Isabelle after she passes away. They leave, and then they go to obviously find Laurent like Isabelle wished, and that she wished to take care of wish Daryl to take care of Laurent and all that stuff. So they go to where Laurent is supposed to be. Of course, he's not there. And then on the way, as they're trying to essentially look for him, we finally get the one thing that pisses me off the most in this episode. And there's another big thing that we didn't even get to in Madame Genet later in the episode. We'll get to that. But when they're walking, essentially to find Laurent or find somewhere, I forget the reason, they were going to find something, whatever. Essentially, Daryl asks Carol who came back, it was like the biggest point of the first season. It was something that we were speculating on. It was a marketing ploy for people to watch season 2. That was the only reason they did that. And now we know that's the only reason they did that, because what came back? A feeling came back. What? Oh my God. Like, okay. Say what you want. What the fuck was that? Are you kidding me? This whole time, no one came back, even though we know Rick came back. No one came back. I swear to God, if she's pulling a fast one on us and last minute is going to be like, surprise, it's Rick. But no, I don't think that's the case. Like, I really don't. I think this was just straight up a marketing ploy and a way to make sure their viewer base remained for season 2, so people could see that it was like Rick or someone coming back and all the fans could speculate on it. It's bullshit. It's a shitty move, and it pisses me off that the explanation for that whole thing was a feeling, so that she had to run away. A feeling that she just, I forget what it was, like a feeling that she was upset that, that she lost people or whatever. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? That's what we spent this whole time speculating on, is a throwaway line in this episode. Oh, it was a feeling. What? Oh my God. Are you serious? Absolutely bullshit. And I do understand the fact that maybe she had left before Rick came back. Sure. I understand that. Also, like, I kind of don't. Wasn't she, like, the leader of not the leader, but wasn't she, like, the Lance Hornsby of the Commonwealth? Wouldn't you have, like, at least a walkie-talkie or something, because we all know how much this universe fucking loves walkie-talkie. Wouldn't you have heard about this? Like, I'm just confused. When does this story take place? Obviously, when Daryl got to France, he didn't know Rick came back. We know that. But sometime in between there, Rick did come back. We know that. If anyone could clear that up in the comments, I'd like to know. But that whole thing was just pure, utter bullshit. You're telling me, I'm going to say it the last time, you're telling me that we wasted all of this time speculating for it to be a fucking throwaway line? That is just some absolute gimple shit. I don't know what else to say. That pisses me off. That gets no passes. What the fuck? That's insane. Whatever. We still have more story to go because, quite frankly, from here on out in the episode, it felt really slow because when they get into essentially this neighborhood, they find this couple that takes them in because Daryl's looking for a car. He has a car. So they go with this guy and they essentially stay with him for like 2 days. It felt like forever in terms of watching the episode. I don't even know what transpired there. They had this whole like bond or whatever. Essentially, Genet's army people came by for supplies, kind of like what happens with Negan and all of that stuff. But then somewhere in that span of time, the old man rats out that Daryl's there. And of course, Madame Genet comes in with the whole wee-wee and she tries to find Carol and Daryl. Of course, she does find them. And in a matter of seconds, just like General Beale, she's killed. Now, I will say, you'd probably think I'd have problems with that, and I do. But I actually thought the death was really cool. I really liked it. It was fitting for the villain to go the way she did. I liked it. It was great to see her get a taste of her own medicine with the whole Venom thing. I mean, whatever, the Super Walker variant thing. I did actually enjoy that. It was great to see. But similar to the last episode of The Ones Who Live, it's just contextually, it was such fucking bullshit. It really was. It was bullshit. And the biggest reason I find it to be bullshit is clearly at this point, what was all of this story for? I just do not get it. And then on top of that, you did what I said you did in the last episode. You humanized the villain. And look, to some extent, I think I need to correct myself on one point in that sometimes it makes sense to give context to why a person is the way they are. I get that. But the reason I got more pissed, and now you're seeing the full picture, the reason I got so pissed in that episode, which I shouldn't have portrayed that way realistically, was because of this episode. You killed her in the next episode. So you spend the whole episode before that building up her backstory and how she lost the lover and she's angry because she lost a fucking lover, essentially. Only to then, right before she dies, she tells Carol, I lost someone, blah, blah. Who gives a shit? You're going to die. You're the villain of the story. We don't care. We don't care. That's why I got so pissed about it. It just bothers me so much. It doesn't make sense. So whatever. That is stupid. But then the thing that pisses me off even more than this is now with Genet gone, and now the story clearly going in a direction where it's Losang just trying to get Laurent. What the fuck is going to happen with this whole variant Walker storyline that was the biggest point of season 1? That was a selling point of season 1 of the show. What, are we just going to forget about it? That's what bothers me so much. Like, are you kidding me? I don't understand it. I don't understand why they do these things where they have these big, grandiose stories only for them to be wrapped up and like done, and then we just forget about it and move on. Now, mind you, there's some stuff with that I'm sure will stay around, whatever, all of that stuff. But now, obviously, with Genet gone, that being like the central part of what made Genet Genet and that whole thing, it's clear this is not going to go that way anymore. It's just not. And that's what annoys me. It's not necessarily her death. It's that when it wraps up, all is said and done, she has that badass cool death, which I really did like. Then it's like, okay, well, what happened to the biggest plot of this show up to this point? Like, real, just, So that's essentially the episode, guys. I mean, it ends shortly thereafter. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember exactly what came immediately after that. So forgive me for that, for not remembering. It's been a couple days since I've watched the episode, but that's the gist. Those are the big points of it. We have Isabelle's death. We have Carol finally saying Ick came back, but it was a feeling. We have Genet's death. We have that whole sequence with the nest. This was a big episode, and I know that Norman Reedus was saying this was a big episode. I'd argue this was the biggest episode of the season. I enjoyed watching it. I really did, but there was a lot of problems that I also had with it. The nest stuff was very cool, but the baggage that came in it, not a fan of. Isabelle dying, not a fan of. Didn't hate it, but not a fan of it. All of that stuff, the it came back bullshit, that just agitates me. The seemingly neutering of the entire storyline with the variant walkers now because Genet's dead just annoys me. But again, the pros, love the nest stuff, love the way Genet went out. And I do also enjoy some of the drama that happened there with Isabelle and Daryl when they said their goodbyes. And even I loved the reunion of Daryl and Carol, even though it was quick, whatever. So yes, there was a lot I really didn't like here, but there was a lot I did that kind of offset it a little bit. This was a mixed episode for me, if I'm being honest. There was a lot of things that really, really pissed me off, and hopefully that shed some color on why I hated episode 3 so much, personally. But that's my thoughts. I'm a little mixed. I'm very angry at some stuff, but I'm also, I mean, it was the episode. That's what it was. I'd love to hear from you guys. Did you love this episode? Did you hate this episode? Be sure to let me know down there. And with all that out of the way, thanks again so much for watching this video. If you want to see the gear that I use to make these videos, all the links for them are in the description. And with that out of the way, thanks again so much. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.